Okay, so welcome to the Kentucky Hemp Lectures. Actually, I'm Jonathan Masters doing the Kentucky Hemp Lectures, and I'm going to review the Kentucky nationalism first before I actually get into the hemp in order to weed out the foreigners, right? We don't want anybody who isn't Kentucky listening to what we're talking about. So Kentucky kicks ass. This is the people that are trying to promote Kentucky. Steve Brashear, he has a PR, right? I think the state is paying for the Kentucky Kicks Ass people to find good things about Kentucky and promote it. And they came up with these two prints that says the inventions of Kentucky. Well, half of them are inventions that were made from Kentucky, but the other half are not. So they're lying. So, good, brag about things that Kentucky actually has done, but don't brag about things that we haven't done. Well, you don't want us to go around bragging about, crap that isn't, we look like fools already. We don't need to be bragging about stuff we haven't already. So let's run through some Kentucky facts and information. First of all, Kentuckians are the smartest people who've ever walked the planet. They're just hands down easiest. There's some dumb ones here, but the rest of us have actually had to deal with the dumb ones and still, move on. So, give us credit where credit is due. Kentucky, the #1 for resort parks out of all 50 states. So, which state has more resort parks than every other state out here? Kentucky does, okay? So not only do we have, parks here, parks there, but we also got national parks, Daniel Boone National Park, and so we have lots of spacious places for people to, also the most waterways. So we got lots of water, lots of trees, and lots of parks. So this is God's country, clearly God's country. God created Kentucky. Kentucky was God's most wondrous creation, and then He just kind of sprinkled the other states around Kentucky. That's why Kentucky is the heart of the United States. It's right in the middle. Basically, if you look at the map, all eyes look to Kentucky. So Kentucky, clearly the greatest state ever created in terms of its beauty and landscape, so we can have a tourist industry. The most fertile land in Kentucky is in Barren County. So that's a bit ironic, right? It's named after, I think, Bland Barren. But barren, it means like no fertile, not fertile is barren, nothing could grow there, but it's actually the most fertile land in Kentucky is in Barren County. So that's a good way to remember it, because barren is not barren. Barren is very fertile. And you could raise lots of marijuana in Barren County and do really well. Or marijuana hemp, right? Or hemp marijuana, or however you want to say it. Hemp. Let's just call it hemp. Okay, so Lake Cumberland used to be called the Shawnee River, so there'd be the Shawnee Lake. But it's Lake Cumberland now because it's been anglicized. There's actually more shoreline in Lake Cumberland than Florida. So it just gives you an idea of one lake. I mean, we also, there's other lakes, there's other streams. There's the Green River, Kentucky River, and the Blue Licks River. I think it's a river. Maybe not. I don't know. The Salt River, Green River. Did I say the Green River already? So, the Green River. And then you got Kentucky River. We got some other rivers, actually, but I don't want to check that out now. So, let's see. 1888, Kentucky was the first to vote with a secret paper ballot. So the first for true democracy. Everybody else was like, just raise your hand. It's like, wait a second, when you raise your hand, you could see who we're voting for. And so a big, strong guy could just be like, you better vote for me or else I'm going to, golly. Yeah, so a big, strong dude could just say, hey, you better vote for me. If you didn't raise your hand, then you didn't vote for me, so therefore I'm mad at you, okay? So that's 1888. Kentucky is the first to vote with a secret paper ballot, so that's something that we can brag about, right? The first secret paper ballot. So let's all be proud about that. So that's democracy, we're the first to actually advance in a democracy. All these other colonists there just raising their hands, and anybody could just, from the just the property white male, voting establishment, but they were just raising their hands. Well, that's quick and easy for like mob rule, but actually if you have secret paper ballots, then people, that's genius. That's the next step. And then the next step after secret paper ballots is instant runoff voting. So IVR, right? That's the next step. Clearly the next step is instant runoff voting. Okay, so what did they lie about? So they said that they had invented a whole bunch of things. So actually, I'm just going to kind of go down a list of things we have invented and then things we haven't invented. So Kentucky, we have, let's see, we've invented the Happy Birthday to You song. So happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear, who the fuck ever, happy birthday to you. So that's we made that song in 1893. It was two sisters in Louisville that had made it, and so I think 1893, right around the same time as radio was being supposedly had been invented. Now that's a different question. I can't answer the radio question. They asserted that radio was invented in Kentucky. That is certainly what Murray University and some of the Nathan Stubblefield fans assert, which I have his book around here somewhere. But that's the radio question is a big question, because the radio question says basically we have to study non-physical phenomena just to be able to answer the question. So who did start radio? So a lot of people give credit to Marconi. They say Marconi, he did the radio, but a lot of folks are saying this guy, Nathan Stubblefield, had created radio. So he's in Kentucky. So it's not known if he actually did. It sounds like he did not. But he created some sort of sound through the air, right? Some sort of type of, but he used induction. He was running wires through the ground. So he was using the energy in the ground in order to have radio or telephone, right? Which is what they're saying radio is just telephone. Wireless telephone is radio. And so that's a little bit different at running wires through the ground versus actual just, using whatever pulses in the air, the electromagnetic field. Okay, let's just actually read some Nathan Stubblefield. Says he raises vegetables for market in order that he may live, but he has 10 years to devote all his spare time to electrical experiments. So Nathan realized he was on the verge of national notoriety and surprisingly candid in his responses. The only facts he failed to diverge were the details of the invention itself, which were yet unpatented. Nathan claimed that these descriptions were in a document filed with the Callaway County Court Clerk, a witness by several pillars of the community. So he led the way to a tiny workshop built onto the porch of his house. It was just wide enough to hold the transmitter, which stood before the window, and a chair. One end of the room was given up to shelves laden with technical books on electricity. The transmitting apparatus was concealed in the box before described. I don't know if I should want to read all through this. So, let's see, he tested it on he receives a wireless telephone call, Washington, D.C., on the banks of the Potomac River in 1902, March 20th. So he's receiving, a wireless call, right? Hello, who's this? Yes, sir. Right, that thing, it doesn't seem to be connected to, well, it might be connected to the ground. I don't know, it says wireless telephone call. So I guess he's got an apparatus, right, a transmitter, and then a thing that catches the transmitter. And so he was able to call and talk to somebody in 1902. So is that radio? I don't know. But to claim that it is, to sit there and say that that's just ridiculous, okay? So they don't know, so you shouldn't claim it. It's borderline. I'll put a question mark by radio because maybe we did. So they said disco balls. No, Kentucky did not create disco balls. I've actually got write-ups for all this, but also Corvettes. We didn't create Corvettes either, or fried chicken, or the cheeseburger, or the Bowie knife. Okay, these are all lies. Don't believe the hype. We did create the Tommy gun. We created bourbon. We created high fives. And the Bessemer process, which actually should be called the William Kelly process, since that's the Kentuckian who invented it. But Bessemer pulled an Edison and pulled a Bill Gates and stole the idea from somebody else. So that's right. That's so tell the truth, right? We need to tell the truth. Enamel bathtub. We created enamel bathtub in 1856. We also have a Kentucky law that you got at least bathed one time per year. The enamel finish, the baked on enamel finish, was more safer, comfortable, and easier to clean. So once you put, I think it's like enamel finish on cast iron. So you have a cast iron tub, and then you put an enamel finish on it. I think porcelain. You put porcelain on the bathtub, and it's just a beautiful design, right? People love those old style bathtubs. So yeah, so we've created a Happy Birthday to You, the Tommy gun, bourbon, high fives, the Bessemer process, and long-lasting chewing, long-lasting flavored chewing gum. So the John Colgan, a druggist, had actually made bubble gum or chewing gum better by putting a long-lasting flavored to it. He called it taffy chulo. Mother's Day, we created Mother's Day, so the celebration of Mother's Day that came out of Kentucky. The hot brown, which is a type of sandwich or type of eating thing. It was made by Fred K. Schmidt at the Brown Hotel in Louisville. So we did create the hot brown. We created Mother's Day. We created long-lasting chewing gum. Happy birthday to you, Tommy Gunn, bourbon, high fives, and the William Kelly process. Those things we did do, so those things we can brag about, okay? Go ahead, brag about it. Yes, the high fives, that was us. Kentucky, it was U of L team. The U of L actually created the high five. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, U of L, we invented the, we had the first heart transplant. And we had the first ER and the ambulance. So Kentuckians, you can brag about your ambulances. You can brag about having emergency rooms. Okay? You can brag about having the first heart and hand transplant. So heart and hand transplant, first emergency room, first ambulance, first Tommy Gunn, first bourbon whiskey. We created bourbon whiskey. It was just by corn mash, right? There was corn here in the United States, but there wasn't any elsewhere, so we just used that because you could always ferment any type of field sort of wheat field grain. You could always make grain ferment. So happy birthday to you, Tommy Gunn, bourbon, Tommy Gunn, happy birthday to you. High fives, William Kelly process, first hand transplant, first heart transplant, first emergency room, first ambulance, first hot brown, first Mother's Day, we created Mother's Day, and first long-lasting flavored chewing gum, first enameled bathtub, but not disco balls. We create disco balls, but we weren't the ones that invented it. Cheesburgers, that's just kind of, we brag about it, but actually other restaurants brag about it like 5 years before us. And, I mean, is that a novel idea to put cheese on a burger? Like, I'm going to put ketchup on a burger, too, you know? Am I a genius for doing that? I'm the first one to come up with ketchup cheeseburger. Ketchup and mustard. Oh, I just come up with another invention. Ketchup, mustard, and onions. Look at me. Oh, my God, I'm on fire here. Maybe throw lettuce in it, right? So I can just pick all these different combinations and say, I'm the one that created this. So the cheeseburger, that's not the invention. Who cares who put cheese on a burger? Where did the hamburger come from? And that came from Germany. So that's, you can't even try to claim the cheeseburger. So that's, you know, you're stretching it. You're not even telling the truth with the cheeseburger because it's not the first one even in America. And it's not an invention. So no, we didn't invent the disco balls. We didn't invent the cheeseburger. We didn't invent the Corvette. We have a Corvette plant, and 90% of all the Corvettes are made out of Bowling Green, and so that's exciting, and that's actually really cool because the Corvette's like one of the only cars that have been like the only model car that's been like that's had a factory consistent like for 50 years or so. So they're still making Corvettes. People love them. They're you know, they have a unique look, or they're powerful, they're sleek, and you had a big hole. Actually, I don't know if you knew anything about Kentucky. You had that big hole in the Corvette Museum. The sinkhole, it just sunk all of them, and all those, you know, awesome vets and stuff like fell in. It almost seems like a sinkhole. That seems weird. It seems like some people try to dig a tunnel underneath it and try to take it or something. But that's if it was planned, it failed, and if it was just a sinkhole, that sinkhole cost millions. So no disco balls, no cheeseburgers, no Corvettes, no fried chicken. That's racist, okay, to put fried chicken on Kentucky. Yeah, we got Kentucky Fried Chicken, so we perfected it. We made fried chicken better. But to think that we're the first person to put chicken in oil, they've been cooking stuff with oils like for centuries, right? And the Bowie knife, we don't know anything about James Bowie, except for he's a total asshole, right? He was a slave trader. He pretended he owned all this land, and we sell him land he didn't own, and it went up to the Supreme Court and actually got rejected. So Jim Bowie, we don't even know how to say his name. Bowie, Bowie, all these Bowie or Bowie I've seen like has been like, oh, that's acceptable. The TV show was Bowie. So actually I like Bowie because Bowie doesn't. The Bowie knife is really cool. The Bowie knife is really long, and it's like half the size of a sword, so it's not even really a knife. It's a half a sword, okay? And then it's got that tip, right, so where you could just look like you would gut people with it. So it's a really impressive looking knife. And but to put it on Bowie isn't accurate because it was created by James Black, a different blacksmith who had made it, or his brother had also claimed to have it too. So they're clearly liars. Who knows who actually come up with the Bowie knife? But that's he didn't invent it. It actually didn't come out of his hand, so he didn't make it. Jim Bowie himself. It could have been his brother, but most likely James Black, a blacksmith he had hired in order to make the knife. And so not only is it not the Bowie knife because it's named after a lying piece of crap, so who knows what's true and what's not true, but he was born in Kentucky, but he moved out when he was like 4. So he didn't invent this in Kentucky. So if he was even born in Kentucky, some people say Tennessee and Georgia, so we don't even know for sure if he was born in Kentucky. And if he was born in Kentucky, then he had moved out when he was just a baby. So no way he invented the Bowie knife while he was here. He couldn't have done crap except for just crapped on himself. So really it's his family that was born here. And then his family takes him elsewhere, and then he grew up elsewhere. So Kentucky can give credit for giving birth to Jim Bowie and Abraham Lincoln, but we didn't raise these folks. They actually didn't. That's why Illinois can get away with calling themselves the land of Lincoln, because he was born in Kentucky. So yeah. That's so Jim Bowie wasn't even born in Kentucky. If he was here as a baby, and he was in Louisiana whenever the so-called invention had got made. He took the invention from somebody else. It should be called the James Black knife because it's James Black was the one that had created the Bowie knife. But Bowie was a big notorious person in the West. The Wild West back then, and he got into this huge knife fight, and so he became famous because he had this huge knife that he used and won in a knife fight. So that's why they credit Bowie with the Bowie knife. That's why he gets to put his name on it. But to say it's Kentucky, no. And he was part of the Alamo. He was over there killing, Mexicans and Indians and natives, pretending taking other people's land. He was a crook. He was in the slave trading, right? So he's sitting there trading slaves. He's out there just pretending he owns all this stuff, stabbing people, having duels. This isn't a good guy, okay? This is a wild man. He's clearly psychotic. And maybe he's from Kentucky, and even if he is from Kentucky, he didn't come up with the Bowie knife in Kentucky. James Black came up with it in Arkansas. So that's what else is Bowie known for? So no to Corvettes, no to fried chicken, no to the Bowie knife, no to disco balls, and no to the cheeseburger. Yes to happy birthday to you. Yes to the Tommy gun, to bourbon, to high fives, to the William Kelly process, aka the Bessemer process, the first hand transplant, the first heart transplant, the first emergency room, the first ambulance. We invented the long-lasting flavored chewing gum. So if you chew gum and then it's gone real fast, they're not using Kentucky technology. If the chewing gum industry would listen to Kentucky technology, then the chewing gum would go on and on and on forever. And Mother's Day, we're the ones that Mary Saucine Wilson come up with Mother's Day on April 20th, 1893. She's from Henderson County, so Kentucky come up with Mother's Day. The hot brown, which is a delicious concoction of ham and cheeses and lots of other different things that come up together, and they call it a hot brown. So it's a food item, a delicious food item. I remember tasting it, but I don't remember much more than that. From the Brown Hotel in Louisville by Fred K. Schmidt. And yeah, so those are things that we know about Kentucky. The Tommy Thompson gun, the enameled bathtub, documenting of early plumbing systems of bathing go back as far as 3300 BC with the discovery of copper water pipes beneath the palace in the Indus Valley civilization of ancient India. The clawfoot tub, which eventually reached the apex of its popularity in the late 19th century, had its origins in the mid-18th century, where the ball and claw design originated in Holland, possibly artistically inspired by the Chinese motif of a dragon holding a precious stone. The design spread to England, where it found much popularity among the aristocracy, just as bathing was becoming increasingly fashionable. So it's cool to bathe. Hey, you don't take a bath? Time to take a bath. Cool people bathe. Early bathtubs in England tended to be made of cast iron or even tinted copper with a face of paint applied, but that tended to peel with time. So the Scottish-born entrepreneur David Buick invented a process for bonding porcelain enamel to cast iron in the 1880s. while working for the Alexander Manufacturing Company in Detroit. So this isn't even in Louisville. This is in the 1880s, so this is actually 30 years after Louisville invented the enamel bathtub. This guy comes in and pretends like he's the one that, maybe we created it, but porcelain, did he put the porcelain? No, Louisville created it, okay, I think. So enamel bathtubs, I guess that's a question mark too. We'll put question mark for the enamel bathtubs, question mark for the radio. But the other ones are 100%. The other ones are 100%. So here we have Kentucky was first. Miss Sassine published a pamphlet in 1893 outlining her ideas of commemorating the tender ties of motherhood and bestowing a tribute of honor to the mothers of the land. The book was copyrighted that year. She traveled extensively and addressed educational societies and other organizations in various parts of the country in her efforts to have the observance of Mother's Day nationally recognized and adopted. The Kentucky legislature adopted the idea first in 1894 through her efforts. The day was formally celebrated in all the public schools of Springfield, Ohio. In 1899, Miss Sassine was a candidate for the superintendent of public instruction of Kentucky. Generally discussed over the state, she had first conceived the plan of celebrating Mother's Day. So, wow, create Mother's Day, then you become famous for life. She came from a distinguished family of Kentucky. She was the granddaughter of Judge Thomas Towles, T-O-W-L-E-S. Miss Sassine, right? That's what her name is. Mary Sassine Wilson. So Judge Thomas Towles, noted jurist of the day, and her ancestors were all of revolutionary stock. In 1900, she married Judge Wilson and left Henderson to make her home in Florida, and she died there in childbirth. So the originator of Mother's Day was born in Kentucky, thought of the idea in Kentucky, moves to Florida, gives birth to a child, and then she dies. So that's Miss Sassine, Miss Mary Wilson. And so Mother's Day, we created Mother's Day, right? So here's another. Miss Mary Towles Sassine was born on March 5th, 1860. Reared in Henderson, Kentucky, she was a teacher in our own public schools, labored earnestly to have 420, right, which is Hitler's birthday. Also 420, International Smoke Pot All Day Day, 420. For her mother's natal day, observed in the schools in the manner in which we now celebrate. Mary, also known as Mamie Sassine, was quite tall. Her auburn hair and one of the brightest faces and wittiest tongue. Julia Alves Clory, ever known, one of her chief charms was her happy-go-lucky spirit, always smiling where the occasion demanded, very firm and dignified, quick at repartee, sharp at wit. She was always able to hold her own with the most intelligence. She was noted for that famous smile. Her advice was, say what you'd like to say, just so you say it with a smile. So anyways, she's a nice person, right? And she come up with Mother's Day. So Kentucky come up with Mother's Day, hot brown, long-lasting flavored chewing gum, the emergency room, ambulance, hand and heart transplant, Tommy guns, happy birthday to you, high fives, bourbon, and the William Kelly process. Not disco balls, not cheeseburger, not Corvettes, not fried chicken, and not the Bowie knife. Tesla, he got his stuff robbed. Tesla's amazing. He said when we start understanding non-physical phenomena, our science will increase by hundreds, okay? So just 100-fold. If we start learning, like, electricity and electromagnetism and all the waves that's in, he has this idea, okay, that he wants to have radiant energy, free wireless electricity. So you have a tower and then have a whole field of light bulbs and be able to light those field of light bulbs and be able to light it with maybe us in the house. We have all this magnetic radio waves. All these things are actually going through our head right now. So people are putting out all these waves everywhere. There's a tower right there, but this is a wireless internet. There's cell phones, right? Cell phones are wireless, going through the air. TV signals, broadcasting signals, radio broadcasting signals. These wires are all going throughout the air. So the theory is that the tower was like it grabs all this energy, it digs deep into the ground, and then it sort of kind of captures the earth, the energy of the earth, sort of like how Nathan Stubblefield was using the earth to get his voice to travel. So you're like using the electricity of the earth, and then you had some sort of copper top that sort of was able to get a lot of electricity, and then you're able to throw the power out to where they're able to do it. So he had like two metal things, and he was able to make the thing in the middle glow. So he was able to like create a force field. But I wonder how the other things inside that force field actually work. I don't know. It's you know, you could create, if he was to light those whole field of light bulbs up, that's incredible. But what if a person or a man is standing there? I was reading something else too about Edison's DC energy. It was electrocuting people. There was a problem, a DC anomaly. So before Tesla's invention of the polyphase AC generator became the industry standard and overtook Thomas Edison's use of DC generators, the DC electrical system was the only system available to deliver electricity to America's homes and factories. This is before Tesla. The AC conquers the DC, so just know that. Due to the resistance offered by long transmission lines, Edison had to produce very high DC voltages from his generators in order to deliver enough voltage and current to its final destination. He also had to provide additional pumping stations along the way to boost the sagging voltage, which dwindled from line losses. So having a line really long, you have, you know, you're going to have less electricity in the middle of that, so he had to have different pumping stations along the line to keep it going. So a curious anomaly occurred at the very first instant of throwing the power switch at the generating station. A purple/blue colored spikes radiated in all directions along the axis of the power lines for just a moment. So purple and blue colored spikes, like lightning. In addition, a stinging, ray-like, shocking sensation was felt by those who stood near the transmission lines. In some cases, when large DC voltages surged from the generators, the stinging sensation was so great that occasionally a blue spike jumped from the line and grounded itself through a workman, which would kill him in the process. So Edison's electricity lines was killing people. And this anomaly is important because it's saying that it's not just electrons, you know, floating on the wire. There's other things that are happening. And when they turned it on, they had, you know, they were electrocuting and shocking people because of the it was being grounded through a workman. So had Wardenclyffe. Wardenclyffe is this tower. That's what Tesla had created, the Tower of Wardenclyffe, right? It had been completed without interruption. Tesla may have once again managed to alter the course of history. Instant access to power information, pirated phonograph cylinders, lewd pictures of bare-ankled floozies on the Tesla net may have ushered in the information age almost a century ahead of schedule, making today's world a very different place indeed. Perhaps one day we will enjoy the future that Tesla envisioned, albeit a bit behind schedule. So, Tesla, look at his ideas. Let's think about them. Nathan Stubblefield, think about his ideas. But let's think about the ideas that have worked also. So Marconi and all the rest of them. The Thompson machine gun. So the Tommy gun was created in Kentucky. The Thompson machine gun was developed by General John T. Thompson, who originally envisioned an auto-fire semi-automatic rifle to replace the bolt-action service rifles in use while searching for a way to allow such a weapon to operate safely without the complexity of the recoil or gas-operated mechanism. Thompson came across a patent issued to John Bell Blish in 1915 based on adhesion of inclined metal surfaces under pressure. Thompson found a financial backer, Thomas F. Ryan, and started the Auto Ordnance Company in 1916 for the purpose of developing his auto rifle. It was primarily developed in Newport, Kentucky. So the John T. Thompson auto rifle, right, his automatic auto rifle. A Tommy gun. That's Kentucky. That's Newport. Newport's Covington. It's northern Kentucky. So there's Cincinnati. It's all Cincinnati, right? That's the Cincinnati airport. Is actually in Kenton County, Kentucky. But Cincinnati has it's Ohio, but on the other opposite side is Kentucky, and Kentucky has 3 cities on that side: Bellevue, Covington, and Newport. Okay, and they should just combine because that makes no sense to divide themselves like that. You could tell that it's divided. The different municipalities make it to where it's more scattered, whereas Cincinnati has a more unified vision. And Cincinnati is named after Cincinnatus, which is a Roman emperor who became a tyrant when they was in battle, when they was in war, and then after he had won the war, he stepped down from power. So it's the best story of a person which has high esteem and is respectable. When the country needed him to be a dictator, to be a tyrant, that, you know, to fight this war, he stepped up to the plate, was a great general, won the war, then step down and let the country, heal itself and let the country run for itself. So that's Cincinnati. That's why they named it Cincinnati. The Society of the Cincinnati was the Henry Knox and all those people, the founders. I think it was Knox or some of the cabinet of the founding fathers. They had established the Society of the Cincinnati to preserve the memories of the revolution. So we had this revolution, so we were warriors and we had to fight, do this all the bloody battles, but now that we're done with the bloodshed, now we need to be respectable people. So just like Cincinnati, we took the power and we fought the war in order to win the war, but now we're going to go back into our own farmland and just be peaceful, humble farmers. And so that's the idea of why they called Cincinnati Cincinnati. So it's also at the very top of Kentucky. It's like a Christmas tree, right? It's like the pinnacle. It's almost like Kentucky just kind of points to Cincinnati, and it was for freedom. Kentucky was a slave state for a long time, longer probably than every other state, because of the Civil War they were still a slave state. But then once the war or the emancipation, once the war ended, they had to get rid of their slaves. So they had slaves. Maryland had slaves. So they were the last ones to hold on to their slaves. Kentucky was. So what's the point of any of that? I don't know. They were a bunch of crybaby white supremacists, but the Confederates are still running things today. So they've been crying about losing their slaves for a long time, but they should probably just get over it, right? So Newport, Kentucky, the principal designers were Theodore H. Eichhoff, Oscar V. Payne, George E. Gall. By late 1917, the limits of the Blish principle were discovered. Rather than working as a locked breech, it functioned as friction-delayed blowback action. It was found that the only cartridge currently in U.S. service suitable for use with a lock was the 45 ACP round. Thompson then envisioned a one-man handheld machine gun and 45 ACP as a trench broom for use on the ongoing trench warfare of World War I. Payne designed the gun itself and its stick and drum magazines. The project was in the Annihilator. By 1918, most of the design issues had been resolved. However, the war ended before the prototypes could be shipped to Europe. Wow, could you imagine World War I with machine guns? I guess they had machine guns by World War II, right? And it was incredible. World War II was like way worse of a war than World War I was. And World War I was bad. It was trench warfare. They were digging trenches and just shooting at each other in the trenches all day, right? Just digging a ditch there, digging a ditch there. And that was World War I. So this concept had already been developed by German troops using their own Bergmann MP-18, the world's first submachine gun, in concert with Sturmtruppen tactics. The magazines hold like 20 to 30 rounds. Two alternatives to the L drum and XX box magazines were tested December 6, 1941 at Fort Knox, right here. An extended 30-round box magazine and a 40-round magazine made by welding two 20-round magazines face-to-face jungle style. So there's 40-round magazines. So a Tommy gun, you can shoot 40 bullets, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 30-round box approved as standard in December 1941 to replace the XX and L magazines. Concept of welding two box magazines face-to-face was carried over with the UD-42 submachine gun. The staff of Savage Arms locked for ways to simplify the M1928A1, producing a prototype in February 1942, which was tested at Aberdeen Proving Ground in March 1942. Army Ordnance approved adoption as the M1 in April 1942. Okay. So the Thompson machine gun, they come out of Newport, Kentucky. So we invented the Tommy gun. We invented bourbon. Bourbon was by Elijah Craig. High fives. Let's see. The Newport police, they want their Tommy gun back. They sold it a long time ago, but they're realizing how popular it is. Here's the decorticator. The decorticator is a machine that helped sort of process hemp. Okay, so this was an old machine that we probably should bring back. I don't know if there's many left, but the decorticator seems like it's absolutely essential. When it comes to hemp, you have the stalk, and then you got some woodish pulp stuff on the inside. So you got stalk and some sort of, they say woodish, but I don't see how it can't be that woodish. It's got to be like soft, because they say hollow. It's also hollow and woodish. I don't see how something can be hollow and woodish. But there's two things, right? There's the stalk part, and then there's that middle part. And a decorticator is a machine for stripping the skin back, bark or rind off nuts, wood, plant stalks, grain, etc. in preparation for further processing. In 1861, a farmer named Bernagazzi from Bologna, this is in Germany, manufactured a machine called the Corvettes, a decorticator for hemp. So he made the decorticator. It's a farmer named Bernagazzi from Bologna. I'm going to say Bologna because that's how it's spelled. B-O-L-O-G-N-A. A working hemp decorticator in 1890. Manufactured in Germany, is preserved in a museum in Bologna in Italy. The decorticator faded in the 1950s because of the competition from synthetic materials and other more profitable crops. Probably hundreds of different decorticators have been developed since 1890. Misconceptions spread about the device includes a suggestion that the first working hemp decorticator was invented in the United States in 1935. Not true. This was invented in Germany. The Germans are the ones that always invent stuff. They're the smartest people out there. So not only are Kentucky has a lot of German influence, but the Kentucky is smart. The Kentuckian is smart. So you combine Germans with Kentuckians, you get just pure genius. Okay, you get Tesla, Einstein, even Edison. He'd come up with some things, right? You just get genius, right? You get Nathan Stubblefield. You get the stoplight, right? Garrett Morgan. You get Garrett Morgan. You get emergency rooms and ambulances and Tommy guns and the Bessemer processes and bourbon, and we just keep creating things, right? We just keep on the hot browns and Mother's Day and chewing gum, long-lasting flavored chewing gum, bathtubs. Right? This is Kentucky. This is what Kentucky does. This is who we are. Okay? We invent stuff. We create things. And the decorticator is something that we can come up with, buy, or come up with ourselves. We're going to have to, because we're going to have to, all this is going to have to be done by machines. You can't use slave labor anymore, but this is a brave new world. We have technology. We got robotics, okay? So we're going to use robots and machines, and we're going to create an incredible an empire, a hemp empire, right here in the bluegrass state. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it because we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to be talking about the different things. What's the best uses for hemp? What are the markets? The best promising, best promising markets out there. Some of it just for deforestation and paper. The government should just finance just so we're not cutting down all these trees, right? So we should get the federal and the state government in on this. But not just not to make paper, but to make a ton of things. So the decorticator is a very smart machine. It's machine breaks. They call them like the hemp breakers. So that decorticator is one type of breaker. A 1917 introduction of a machine designed by George Schlichten. What is this? So this is a different model actually, but the SCHLICHTEN. So Schlichten, I don't know. Looks like another German, right? He called it the decorticator. It separated the long hemp fibers from the pulpy celluloid herd center of the hemp stalks, dramatically reducing the exorbitant labor costs associated with cleaning and preparing hemp for further processing. So it separated the long hemp fibers from the pulpy celluloid herd center of the hemp stalks, right? So you got the long hemp fibers, you got the stalky part, and then you got the herds. And I got to remember that the herds, like cattle herds, like turds, pulpy celluloid herd center of the hemp stalk. So you got the stalk and you got the herds. Okay, so that's what the decorticator does. It separates those two things. Under old methods, hemp was cut and allowed to lie in the fields for weeks until it retted enough so the fibers could be pulled off by hand. Retting is simply rotting as a result of dew, rain, and bacterial action. Machines were developed to separate the fibers mechanically after retting was complete, but the cost was high, the loss of fiber great, and the quality of fiber comparatively low. With the new machine known as the decorticator, hemp is cut with a slightly modified grain binder. It is delivered to the machine where an automatic chain conveyor feeds it to the breaking arms at the rate of 2 or 3 tons per hour. The herds are broken into fine pieces which drop into the hopper, from where they are delivered by blower to a baler to a truck or freight car for a loose shipment. The fiber comes from other into the machine ready for baling. This man spent 18 years, 400,000 lira, or lire, or whatever the French, the L, whatever that weird looking L is from the French, on the decorticator. So he spent lots of time and money on a machine that could strip the fiber from nearly any plant, leaving the pulp behind. His desire was to stop the felling of forest for paper, which he believed to be a crime. So the man who actually made the decorticator wanted deforestation to end, and we can, the rainforest, right, the tropical rainforest, we can actually we can save the rainforest, and we should save the rainforest. Why would we not save the rainforest, right? Okay, so I can start the hemp lectures right now. Okay, to weed out the foreigners, right? I went ahead and did all of that. That whole thing was the weed out. The hot brown, it's a type of sandwich. Actually, let's check out what type of hot brown. What is a hot brown? I've had the hot brown before, and I remember it being delicious, but I can't remember what it actually is. The hot brown, there's a place in Warsaw, Kentucky that had served the hot brown. It was like all fancified place right across from the courthouse. Well, what is this? What is this? It's a fancy place in the old redneck town. What is this? Yeah, we have lots of tourists. We got lots of through traffic. A lot of people come through us, and I think we should make it special for when they stop here. I remember when I was selling sweet corn, I had like overall bibs. Man, I played my farmer redneckish up, you know. And at the time, I was actually living in the subdivisions, so I was living in the suburbs, acting like a redneck, going to the city, right? But I guess the subdivision is sort of redneckish. But I was also kind of retaining my farmer. Grew up on a farm, but as a slave, not as an independent farmer. So the hot brown is a variation of the traditional Welsh rare bit, and was one of 2 signature sandwiches created by chefs at the Brown Hotel. Let's see, it's hot brown. Let's see. Let's see. Main ingredients are turkey, bacon, and Mornay sauce. So that's the hot brown. You got turkey and bacon and Mornay sauce. The Mornay sauce is probably the key to it. I'm looking at the picture. It looks like there's not only bacon and there's a tomato on it, some cheese, a little parsley, and it looks like drippy cheese. Actually, it looks like that cheap sort of matinee cheese. You know what I'm talking about. The cheap that you dip chips in, sort of the process. Not like Cheese Whiz, but that's like a high quality crap. Cheese Whiz is like high quality crap. So yeah, turkey, bacon, Mornay sauce. It could just be Mornay sauce. It might not even be cheese. It's an open faced sandwich of turkey and bacon covered in Mornay sauce and baked or broiled until the bread is crisp baked. So you just take a sandwich of turkey, bacon, Mornay sauce, and you bake it until it's crisp and the sauce begins to brown. Many hot browns also include ham with the turkey and either pimentos or tomatoes over the sauce. An imitation hot brown sometimes substitute a commercial cheese sauce instead of the Mornay sauce, though fans of the dish usually decry this substitution. More common alternatives to the hot brown include using cheddar cheese or American cheese for the sauce. Alternatives for garnishes include tomato, mushroom slices, and very rarely canned peaches. That'd be interesting, canned peaches. So, let's see, cheddar cheese or American cheese they have for the sauce. So instead of having a Mornay sauce, they use cheddar or American cheese on top of the turkey or bacon. Mornay sauce, that would be interesting. I mean, the Mornay sauce seems like that's what makes it. So if you're not using it, if you're trying to do the alternatives, then you might not actually be tasting a hot brown, a true blue hot brown. When Fred K. Schmidt created the hot brown, its sliced roast turkey was a rarity, as turkey was usually reserved for holiday feasts. The original hot brown included sliced turkey on an open-faced white toast sandwich with Mornay sauce covering it, sprinkling of Parmesan cheese, completed by being oven broiled until bubbly. Pimento and bacon strips were then added to it, and after its debut, it quickly became the choice of 95% of the customers to the Brown Hotel's restaurant. So once they introduced the hot brown, that's all anybody wanted. 95% of the customers just wanted the hot brown. Give me the hot brown, right? A hot brown, you know, it sounds like poop, right? That's all really. When you think of the name hot brown, but I guess it's named Brown not because of poop. That's, come on. Because it's named after the hotel. It's called the Brown Hotel, and I guess that's the last name of some people. So it's a hot brown because it's named after these people that was named after the hotel. Turkey, bacon, Mornay sauce, bread, maybe pimientos or tomatoes over the sauce. Hot brown on TV. No, I'm not reading any of that. On the menus in the Louisville area, the hot brown often appears as the title, the Louisville hot brown. Elsewhere in Kentucky, outside of Louisville, it's the Kentucky hot brown, and outside the Commonwealth, simply as hot brown. No, I think you should call it the Louisville, Kentucky hot brown, right? That comes out of Louisville, Kentucky. That's a hot brown. That's a Louisville, Kentucky thing. So that's Kentucky kicks ass because we invented the hot brown. So the hot brown, that's our thing. That's a Kentucky thing. So let's keep this rolling. Keep this rolling. Camera's on. Don't take a breath. You gotta have material. People want to hear new information, a joke. They want to hear something. Give me something. I want to hear this. Okay, so I'm weeding up the foreigners. So if you're not fucking Kentucky, you don't give a shit about any of this stuff. Who gives a crap if it's made in Louisville, made in Kentucky? But if you're a Kentuckian, you care. You care, okay? And again, Kentuckians ain't no slackers, right? We might have created the radio. We might have created the enamel bathtub. We definitely made Happy Birthday to You, right? We're musical. Happy Birthday to You. That's us. We did that, right? Tommy guns. So we helped the gangsters, right? During Prohibition. We're the number one. I mean, my God, we got moonshiners, and we're number one for marijuana. So we've got, and the Tommy guns. I mean, my God, we just have a nice trifecta of just incredible things because, I mean, that helps the gangsters to be able to break Prohibition and keep on selling the alcohol, even though the government said that alcohol wasn't allowed. So the Tommy guns also helped World War II, right? The machine guns, 30 rounds, right? Instead of just shooting one or two people, you could shoot like 40 people, right? So that's what a Tommy gun, that's Covington, that's Newport, Kentucky, right? So Newport, Kentucky, we made the Tommy gun, we made high fives. High fives, let's get to the high fives. Let's see. We made high fives. Actually, I want to finish this. The William Kelly process, the Bessemer process, the Bourbon Whiskey, hand and heart transplants, the emergency room, ambulance, long-lasting chewing gum, Mother's Day, hot brown, Kentucky. Number one in resort parks. Most fertile land is in Barron County. We got more shoreline than Florida in our Lake Cumberland or Lake Shawnee. I think that we should just, anything that's the Cumberland is just Shawnee, right? Let's Americanize it. That's been anglicized. The American names have been anglicized. Let's re-Americanize ourselves. Let's have a cultural regeneration for the natives. 1888, Kentucky first to vote with the secret paper ballot. So the first for the secret paper ballot or for democracy. So first for advancing democracy. So, you know, Kentucky is a wonderful, beautiful, wonderful place. John Colgan was a Louisville druggist in 1873, added long-lasting flavor to chewing gum to increase its appeal. So John Colgan, he called it Taffy Tulo. So Taffy Tulo, that's us. Hot brown, right? We already said that, by Fred K. Schmidt. Sounds German to me. More Germans. Germans everywhere. Germans just keep on making this, inventing this, taking over this, the entire education system. German, Bridges, Brent Spence, Germans everywhere. So the first enamel bathtub was made in Kentucky or Louisville, 1856, but nobody thought it to bring inside until 1558 or 1958. So you know, it took us a while. That we created the bathtub, but we didn't actually bring it in the house for a while. It was next to the outhouse, right? I don't know, that's true. But the disco balls, Kentucky kicks ass. That's number one. So the Kentucky kicks ass. Quit lying. Stop lying to everybody. We didn't invent the disco balls. I don't understand why you got to tell people that we invented stuff that we did not invent. Where did this come from? The disco balls were invented by Charles and Logan McGrath of Basildon, England in 1859. They ran a popular bar and experimented with lighting effects to enhance the performances of their dancing girls, as established in February 1897 edition of Electrical Worker Boston's Raug House Hall deserves credit for the early documented use of the disco ball. So two competing claims there. Louisville, Kentucky company, currently known as the Omega National Products, claims to have made 90% of the disco balls in the United States during the disco craze, and it still remains a supplier. So that's where it comes from. So good, we make a ton of disco balls. The Omega National Products in Louisville, Kentucky. Again, Louisville just really holds all of Kentucky up. I haven't heard anything else the rest of Kentucky does, right? I'm hearing the Newport's creating Tommy guns. You have Louisville's creating bathtubs. They're creating long-lasting flavored gum. Right? They're the ones that seem to be the hot brown. Louisville's just making everything. I mean, I'm not sure. The Hunter S. Thompson, right? Diane Sawyer. Maybe even Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise coming out of Louisville. So my God, and who else? There was that president. The only Kentucky president, and we can't even really claim Lincoln, he was just barely born here, but the only president that came out of Kentucky is Frank, dang it, Old Rough and Ready. Who's Old Rough and Ready? We're going to find this out. We've had 43 presidents, and one of them came from Kentucky. Like, actually was born here and raised here. And actually wasn't born here, but he was like raised here. So that's, being raised somewhere is more important than being born somewhere. In your timeline, the birth and the end date, those are important spots, but it's really what you did in between, where you spend most of your time in life. That's it. That's who you are, right? So I'm trying to find out the president from Louisville, Kentucky. President is buried, maybe? No, this is President Louisville, Kentucky. That's fine. Right, it goes to James Ramsey. He's the president of Louisville, U of L. But I'm talking about Zachary Taylor. Okay, so Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor was basically a bastard his whole life, but at the very end he redeemed his whole life by being against racism. So Zachary Taylor is from Louisville. So the president, right, the one president that Kentucky supplies, that comes from Louisville. Louisville's kind of doing everything. Louisville's pretty much carrying the rest of Kentucky. So I'm not sure what all the rest of these hillbillies out here are doing. Seems like the city slickers are the ones creating all the new inventions and doing all the new cool things. So yeah, the hill people, they need to catch up. I'm going to end this video and we're going to catch up more. I'm just going to read actually the hemp lectures. I got 20 pages of notes or so. I need to keep on going. So we're going to straighten this out with the Kentucky nationalism, get that list straightened up so we know exactly what we did create and what we did not create, okay? And then what is up for debate? Enamel, bathtubs, radios, did we invent those things? Now, no, the radio thing is the argument doesn't matter as much as the science behind the arguments. And so I think to always question things and question authority is always a good idea. And so radios, how do radios work? I think that's a better start. So let's argue about it. Let's talk about how do radios work. I send out a signal, and then that signal is caught by somebody, and then you hear it. That's essential for radio. We can do that. Walkie-talkies, Nextel, they do that. All boring with Nextel. I have walkie-talkies here. We have cell phones, and we could use internet and use the internet and be able to call people. So actually, we're using lines. We're using airspace. We're using a lot of things for communication these days. But let's carry on with the conversation. This is all Kentucky.